Some news coming in now of an Air India Express flight from Trichy bound for Sharjah having encountered a technical snag. There are 141 passengers on board this AI Air India Express Boeing 737-800 series aircraft. As a result of this, there are multiple ambulances which have been stationed at Trichy airport. What we can tell you at this stage is that some sources indicate that there may be a hydraulic issue with the aircraft. Hydraulic systems impact and are used for the operation of various systems on board aircraft, so certainly control surfaces, the undercarriage as well. However, we do not know the full nature of this. What is taking place right now is that the aircraft is circling overhead Trichy and will make a landing in some time. This is not unusual. Whenever an aircraft needs to return or needs to make a landing soon after takeoff, it burns off fuel. This is in order to ensure that an overweight landing doesn't take place. Though an overweight landing is permitted, in other words, there is a checklist which pilots go through to enable that something like this can take place. It is only rarely that this is done, and if there is an absolutely dire emergency. In this particular case, that may not necessarily be the case. So what the pilots are doing at this stage, as we understand it, is that they're flying in loops. The fact that they're able to do that, and this is image, this grab is on the right-hand side of your screen, is from Flight Radar 24, which clearly shows that the aircraft is holding a pattern and it's doing that consistently. And when it feels, or the pilots feel that the time is right, they will be able to make an emergency landing. Now, hydraulic systems have multiple redundancies on board all modern aircraft. In other words, if there is a hydraulic system failure, there is a backup, and then there is a backup to the backup as well. So there are systems which are available which would ensure that this aircraft gets down safely. Now, we all hope that that does take place, but the fact that you see ambulances on the screen right now seems to indicate that the airport authorities are not taking any chances, and that is very much what their primary responsibility is. So given that there are 140 plus passengers on board this aircraft, and crew members as well, they want to be doubly sure. Now, some little information we do have seems to suggest that after takeoff, the aircraft was unable to retract its landing gear. In other words, they couldn't bring up the landing gear, which is why there was an effort which is now taking place to land the aircraft. The landing gear itself is linked to the hydraulic system, which is why there is a suspicion, there is a sense that it could be a hydraulic issue. In a situation like this, where the pilots are unable to bring up the landing gear after takeoff, the standard operating procedure would be to land soon. But to do that, they have two options: either do an overweight landing, which stresses the airframe and stresses the landing gear as well, or burn off fuel so that the aircraft is lighter and is therefore more capable of making an easier landing. Now, there is less momentum when you make a landing with the aircraft lighter. Braking systems on board, which are also linked to the hydraulic system, would perhaps be more effective. Also, when an aircraft does indicate a state of emergency, they squawk a certain signal. The squawk is 7700. At this juncture, we do not know if the pilot is squawking a full emergency, but there would have been an indicator, certainly in conversations with air traffic control, which has resulted in them in this holding pattern, that they want to make a landing as soon as possible. Let's go across to NDTV's Sam Daniel, who joins us. Sam, what are the details that you have?
Well, Vishnu, as we speak now, one officer at the airport has confirmed that the flight is burning its oil to make sure whenever it lands, there will be absolutely little fuel left on the aircraft. And it's hovering around 4,000 feet high. They say it's a hydraulic problem. There are two opinions being shared. One, they say it could be a normal landing. One is there is a hydraulic failure, total failure. Then they say the pilot will follow the protocol in place for an emergency landing. In terms of the preparation, authorities say they have summoned many ambulances, fire tenders, the absolutely ready in place just in case if things go on. But in terms
Come back to you in just a few moments from now as we get a clearer line to you. But there are a couple of possibilities that we need to look at very, very carefully. Number one, is the aircraft, has the undercarriage of the aircraft retracted properly? In speaking to Air India sources earlier on, I was told that the landing gear of the aircraft did not retract properly, and therefore it is still deployed. If that is the case, then making a landing would be normal. It wouldn't be very, very difficult. If, on the other hand, there is another possibility whereby the landing gear may have partially gone up, that is something that cannot be ruled out, then there is a concern that the aircraft might end up making a partial or a complete belly landing. Now, that is a grave in-flight emergency which would need to be looked at as well. But in speaking to senior sources within the airline some time back, I was not given an indicator that that would happen. However, this is a dynamic situation, and therefore we need to ensure that we do not rule out any possibility. And I think the sense of urgency that we have now is on the basis of what you see on your screens. Several ambulances which have been deployed at this stage, and they are over there just to be sure that nothing goes wrong at this stage, that if there is an emergency, passengers are evacuated, then there are enough ambulances which are available to look after passengers in case they need to be hospitalized. We do not want to go into that stage at this juncture. I should also mention that belly landings, while a grave flight emergency, do take place and do take place successfully. One of the key things that airlines need to do is to ensure that you burn off fuel. You burn off fuel ahead of a potential belly landing. Why? Simply because you want to ensure that there isn't enough combustible matter in terms of fuel on board the aircraft, so that when you do make impact, the chances of an explosion or something catastrophic are reduced. The fuselages of aircraft, their engines themselves, do to an extent smother the impact of a belly landing. We've seen it many times. I remember several years ago, a large Boeing 767 aircraft operated by LOT Polish Airlines had made an emergency landing, a belly landing at Warsaw International Airport quite successfully. This happens every now and again. It does get reported quite frequently, but if there is a belly landing, it would be quite serious. Now, approximately 20 minutes back, when I did speak to senior officials, they seemed to indicate that this was a technical snag. They're hopeful of a normal landing at this juncture, but they are monitoring that situation very, very closely indeed. So what we would like to do is bring on flight safety experts at this time. I'm joined by Captain Amit Singh, the air safety expert. He'll join me in just a few moments from now. Captain Amit Singh, a flight safety expert, would perhaps be able to sort of share a couple of additional aspects of the story. But it's going to take time. It's only when the pilots feel that the aircraft is light enough. Remember, a Boeing 737-800 aircraft would be fully loaded out for its flight from Trichy to Sharjah. So if this is an emergency which has taken place, or just a few moments after takeoff when they were unable to retract their landing gear, then they would want to stay afloat for a period of time, and when they're ready, make that landing.